Tata Steel Challengers was won by Andy Woodward from the United States. And you can see that this was such a cutthroat tournament. There's ones and zeros plastered all over the tournament table. Vasil Ivanchuk came second. He almost did it. What an amazing performance from him. And yeah, lots of remarkable results actually. I think Bibisara Asabayeva from Kazakhstan, great score, 7.5. Faustino Oro, it's prodigy from Argentina, 7 points. So it was a fantastic tournament. But let's concentrate on Andy Woodward. He's 15 years old and playing incredibly well. 2025, I think, was a breakout year for him. He scored 7 out of 11 in the FIDE Grand Swiss tournament in Samarkand. And he beat Aronian, Yu Yangyi and Parham Marsudlu. Outstanding rating performance. And he showed that that was not a fluke, because he played in the US Championship a little bit after that and scored 50%. And now the US Championship is also very, very strong. So score of 50% is really something. And yes, this result, winning the Challengers, confirms how strong he is. And of course, he will qualify for the Masters tournament next year. So I'd like to have a look at one of his games. And this is a game he won against Eline Roebers from the Netherlands. Now, as you can see from the cross table, she came at the bottom of the tournament, but she's a very interesting player, actually. She's very enterprising. She's already an international master, and you know, she is one to watch out for as well. So here we go. Andy Woodward against Eline Roebers. Andy starts with d4, and it's very solid from both players. Well, at least at the moment. So a Catalan. Maybe one of the most respectable openings as white. But Eline decides to take on c4 and then play this really ambitious line with a6. I remember in the 1980s, this had a kind of revival. In fact, it's a very old line. It goes way back to the 1950s. Of course, if black can hang on to this extra pawn and keep this beautiful pawn chain, then black is doing extremely well. The problem is that black has neglected development and white controls the center quite well. I mean, it's already, you know, a lot of activity. And yeah, this is a little bit problematic. So black needs to do something about this. So knight d5 blocks, e4, the knight gets pushed back, and then a4. So white starts the task of, you know, breaking up these pawns or trying to break them up. Bishop b7 takes on b5, and then an exchange on a8. And this has been seen many times before, as I said, going way back to the 1950s actually. I remember thinking about playing this with black, you know, way back, because it is really ambitious. But in the end I decided against it because it's a bit dodgy. It can go wrong very easily. I don't like to have my king in the middle. It's too dangerous. And of course, if this pawn advances, then this diagonal opens. There's a nasty check. It doesn't look good. So c6. So that holds this pawn chain, but of course, what does that bishop feel about being blocked in like that? And the knight isn't very good either. Now, old move here is d5, just to break things up as quickly as possible. And then, well, black can kind of survive if you know what you're doing with bishop e7. But I mean, I don't know whether Andy knew this position or not, but he came up with a new move here. I mean, this has been played in dozens of games. d5 and bishop g5, the most common moves. He found h4 instead. So that's a remarkable move. One does see this in a lot of quite new style Queen's Indian positions, sometimes in the Catalan as well. At the moment, it's a little bit mysterious. You know, what is this pawn doing? But, well, I'll show you what it might be doing. Anyway, Eline played knight d7 here. Let's just have a very quick look at what might happen after bishop e7. So let's just keep advancing with the pawn. Now, if that pawn reaches h6, then of course that disturbs black's king position. Okay, so what if that's blocked with h6? Well, now we can see the point, because white can sacrifice a piece, push the knight out of the way, and play queen g4. This is extremely dangerous. Computer actually rather likes this for white. The bishop and knight are way out of play. Already, the attack against the king is so dangerous. You know, it's beautiful space with this pawn, and you can use that e4 square for bishop, maybe knight. Maybe this bishop is going to come out to h3. It's a great attack. So I don't know how much of that was planned. It'd be very interesting to hear Andy's thoughts on this game. Anyway, knight d7 played instead. And that was exchanged off. And knight takes and e5. Again, gaining space with this pawn, looking to use that e4 square, and in combination with the pawn and, you know, maybe the queen coming out here, very dangerous. So for example, bishop e7, queen g4 is already actually very nasty indeed, because of course castles could be met by bishop h6. Okay, back we go. So after e5, Eline played c5. Well, that's an uncompromising move. Perhaps, well, she feared, clearly, you know, normal development really plays into white's hands. And she obviously wanted to solve the problem of that bishop straight away. But of course it destabilizes the queenside pawns. I mean, it's possible to take on b5 straight away. But bishop g5, hitting the queen. Now, if the queen moves across, okay, he's got to keep hold of that bishop. Then d5, and this is so dangerous. I think black's king could very well be caught in the middle here. Okay, so bishop e7 played. An exchange of bishops here. Now, if bishop g5, then that bishop just cuts back, and black is going to be caught in a horrible pin there. So queen takes, knight b5. So you can see that white is gaining a tempo here, because knight c7 is threatened. So queen a5, hits the knight, covers c7, looks reasonable. Bishop takes bishop. Okay, so if queen takes, you can see that black's king is just caught in the middle. It looks dreadful. So king takes. Now, could be this rook gets into the game, but of course now white knows that the king is stuck in the middle. Pawn takes pawn on c5, opening up the d file. So if queen takes knight, then the king gets pushed back. Rook a1. Well, this looks absolutely dreadful. It's going to be winning for white. So knight takes e5. Queen d6 check. The king stepped up. Okay, well, I think we should have a little pause. You can see that the king is on the run. White has broken through with these pieces, but you need to finish off the game. So, time for me to have a drink of my tea, and time for you to have a think. What would you play next with white? Do you want to improve your chess? Get access to live masterclasses with yours truly? Then subscribe to patreon.com/PowerPlayChess, and for just $25 a month, you get a newsletter with a test game, calculation puzzles, a monthly opening survey, access to an archive with over 100 opening surveys. And you can join in live masterclasses exclusive to patrons where you can ask me questions directly over Zoom. All for only $25 per month. Do subscribe to patreon.com/PowerPlayChess and join the club. The best continuation is pawn to f4. Now this basically just brings the rook into play. So when the knight moves, f5. And this is fatal. So for example, queen takes knight, takes here, check. And now check again. The knight has to come back, get a queen. And, well, you have to be a little bit careful because the king is just a little bit exposed, but actually black can't do much. So queen takes pawn, the queen comes back. And it should be winning for white. It's interesting, it's still not cut and dried, but almost there. So f4 is the best move. In fact, Woodward played knight c3, which looks incredibly strong. It is a strong move, but it does give black some hope here. Although, honestly, trying to find a defense over the boards in an actual game would be impossible. Indeed, it proved impossible for Eline. She played queen d8, chasing that queen. We'll look at the game continuation in a second. In fact, rook d8 gives black some hope here. Now, to work this out, you have to tread incredibly carefully. So knight d5 check. Here, after knight f4, there's only one decent move, and that's king f5. And after queen e7, which looks absolutely terrifying. In fact, black is okay here. It's remarkable. Or knight d5 check, knight e7. Queen takes knight. This is extraordinary. Of course, king takes, knight c6 forks king and queen, but king takes knight. And remarkably, this is actually playable for black. And although black is a pawn down, there's serious counterplay here. Incredible, but absolutely not obvious. Queen d8 was played, and then the finish was pretty clear. g4 check. So this just drags the king up the board. King takes, queen e5. If queen takes knight, then queen g7 check. And you take the rook, for example. And the game went pawn takes, f3, king takes h4, and now a nice winning move, king f2. Just making room for the rook. And there's not a lot that can be done about rook h1. Now, I was being a bit nitpicky there, pointing out that Andy didn't find the exactly the right way to go. But in practice, of course, this is simply too difficult to defend. And that was a superb game. And I have to say, I'm really impressed by this move h4. Like I said, the traditional way here was just to blow up the center as quickly as possible. But actually, h4, the more I look at this move, the better it gets, because white is aiming for, well, it could be d5, but actually, this move e5, just to give white a really nice kingside attack, is very, very strong. So I'm sure we will be seeing much more from Andy Woodward in the future. Remember, he's only 15 years old. It was a remarkable performance to win the challenges. I'll be showing you more games from the Tata Steel Challengers tournament very soon. There was some amazing stuff played there. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that.